This episode is brought to you by Roan. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/SOS and use promo code SOS to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off of your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/SOS and use code SOS. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of SOS VHS. Today we have comedian, actor, and podcaster Will Sasso with us, and we're talking about This is Spinal Tap. Well, thank you, Will, for being here.
Thanks for having me, Andres.
This is awesome. So, before we start, can you summarize Spinal Tap for those who haven't seen it?
Spinal Tap is a 1984 film made by Rob Reiner, but more widely also, of course, Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer, who make up the band Spinal Tap. And it is a rockumentary, as Marty DeBurgi calls it, the filmmaker, Rob Reiner's character. It's a fake documentary. It's a pretend documentary about this incredible band from the UK. This sort of hard rock metal band who found fame in the 60s, and now Marty DeBurgi's catching up with them in the early 80s because they just announced a tour, and it's sort of following them around with this loose story, and it's, in my opinion, one of the absolute funniest movies of all time, and was pivotal to me as far as getting into, comedy and stuff. I there's so much stuff from it that really molded my sense of humor and that of my friends when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, why does it have a special place in your heart?
Well, it's like I would have been 7 or 8 when it came out, or 8 or 9 years old. So I didn't see it when it came out, but you start hearing kids talking about it, like the older kids or my friends' older brothers and sisters are like, oh, this movie's amazing. So you start hearing these little things, and they become sort of, schoolyard lore, if you will. And then you see the movie. I think I was probably 11 or 12 when I first saw the movie, and it blew my mind. I couldn't figure it out because I didn't know, I just thought they were real characters for a minute. But then you start to, things start to cross over. You go, oh, wait a minute. Harry Shearer and that guy looks familiar. There's Lenny from Laverne and Shirley. Michael McKean played Lenny on Laverne and Shirley. Right. Of Lenny and Squiggy. And then, Harry Shearer and Christopher Guest were on Saturday Night Live. And Rob Reiner's Rob Reiner. I knew who he was. So you're sort of like, wait, what? And when you realize that it's a pretend documentary, you're like, this is a sketch movie. This is like, the stuff I would have seen when I was a kid that was also super influential to me. Saturday Night Live, SCTV, Monty Python, and the like. And it just blew my mind. And it happens to be just it's still hilarious. I just watched it last night for the purposes of doing this show, and there's so many parts of it that are just, to me, still hilarious, which is rare for a movie to hold up like that.
Yeah, so funny. You know that they're trying to make a sequel right now, which are all the same characters.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Great.
So, were you always into comedy?
Yeah, since I was a little boy. I think even before I was sort of conscious of it, I was. I had an older brother and an older sister, and they sort of they were like 10 years older than me, so they had run of the TV and stuff, so I sort of would watch SCTV, Carol Burnett, Saturday Night Live, Benny Hill. There was a lot of weird comedy happening that maybe I was too young for, that I didn't get, but the stuff that I did get from it was, I was like, this is the coolest stuff in the world. And then you become, you really develop a relationship with it, because as you go, you start to get more and more of it.
Right.
And it just enriches the whole thing, if that's a word. makes you want to delve deeper into it. Yeah, I was always into comedy.
And when did you realize you were funny? Like, kind of like, okay, I want to do this. Because you were very young when I saw you, the first TVs, shows and all that, pretty young.
You know, probably a couple years ago. No, you know, I mean, I was fortunate enough to, you still hear that with the sustain. Go and come later. That was, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a group of class clowns like myself in elementary school and high school. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, not much has changed. I just kind of like cracking wise and making my friends laugh.
Right.
And anything that I've done over my work and shit in show business, it's like the stuff that I've really enjoyed in comedy, you're making the people around you laugh. So at which point I started to make people around me laugh. I was like, okay, you know, this is, I could see, being sort of involved in it, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
When did you start doing impressions?
I actually was doing a Benny Hill impersonation when I was like 3 or 4. That was my first one.
All right.
Which was just a turn to camera, just, you know, whatever he does. And I was like, and I would get a kick out of my older brother and sister. But hey, look, he does it. And then after that, it was really just on the schoolyard, in the school, you know, like being in elementary school and doing, mostly it was impersonations of, you know, stuff you'd seen on TV. So a lot of it was wrestling. Like I used to like I think one of my earliest impersonations was Jesse Ventura, because he used to commentate wrestling with Gorilla Monsoon. So he had these sayings like, you know, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, Monsoon. I'll give credit where credit is due. But you know, I was like 10 going, you know, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, Monsoon, you know, but that's me doing an impression of me at 10, doing an impression of Jesse Ventura. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Wait. Woo! Yeah, which one is that? That's a Spinal Tap.
So, what would if you had to do a review of Spinal Tap as Jesse Ventura, how would that look like?
I'll give credit where credit is due. This movie hits. This movie explodes on the scene like a hand grenade, Monsoon, and I would know because I was a Navy SEAL. I was a frogman. I can hold my breath underwater for the first act of the movie, which is hard to discern because it's a documentary that's wild and rambling with a through line of a story mostly centering around the relationship between Nigel Tufnell and Dennis St. Hubbins.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think I see you a lot of times, and I feel like you are loud. Do you turn yourself to 11 a lot?
Yeah, I think the comedy, the louder you get, the more people have to pay attention to you. Yeah, actually going all the way up, all across the board. Going to 11, I think, is important in comedy sometimes.
Right.
I also like to keep it very quiet, like Nigel Tufnell's Love Pump. Just, you know, simple notes intertwining. Mm-hmm. On the piano. Sometimes I look at my instrument as an actor, as a piano, meant to play ballads, you know, to give a yin to the yang of the loud comedy. When you put them all together, you have something, a masterpiece like Spinal Tap. Far be it from me to say that I've come anywhere close, but you will continue to strive with your instruments, just like this. Yeah, being loud is important in comedy. Doing things in threes, I've heard. Yeah. Hard C sounds, hard K sounds. You know, And it's important to have those guidelines first.
And why don't you do stand up?
Why don't I do stand up?
Like so funny.
Oh, cheers. I appreciate it. I don't know. I just never got into stand up at a point when, it's interesting. First of all, I should say I have a great respect for stand up. I grew up with a bunch of the, classic comedy albums like Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guy. We had Gilda Live. We had a bunch of Robert Klein, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Robin Williams. We had the stuff, and I love that stuff. I think that I was really fascinated early with the illusion of, TV, film, and the like. So, standing up in front of an audience and being the only one delivering the comedy was just not, I don't know, it's just not my thing. And I think this is kind of a cheap answer, but it's true. It's like, and then, I moved down here. I'm from Canada. And I moved down here. I'm in LA. And then I'm doing a sketch show, Mad TV, and doing other things. And pretty soon you're in your late 20s, you're turning 30, and you're like, I'm not going to just start doing stand-up. And, I'll be honest, I kind of feel like, well, maybe I should have. But it's like, I kind of felt like it would have been a cheap thing, because I think that, real stand-up and finding your voice as a stand-up is something that comes with being in the clubs, coming up from being the guy that has to, fit in where you can, try to get stage time. And we all know, if fans of comedy out there, or if you do stand-up, you know more than some actor like me, that it's all about applying your wares and honing your craft. And I think that's how and I say I think because I don't know, you come up with a thing, find out who you are, find out what your voice is, find out what your sensibilities are, your sense of humor, what you want to keep, what you want to leave behind. And I think that when actors get into it sideways, or any other performer gets into stand-up sideways, it's more of just a performance.
Yeah.
And so it never really appealed to me like that, because it wasn't really natural. Now, I love goofing around and stuff.
Right.
I loved doing the sketch show that I did. I do podcasts and stuff. I have a podcast and stuff like that where it's just silly, willy-nilly. I get to do whatever. And I love just goofing around like that. I would love to do more stuff live and on stage. But I just I've never let go of the feeling and the thought that it would be a cop-out to just be like, hey, I mean, I'm almost 50 years old. To be like,
right.
Stand up now. My good pal Bobby Lee, whom you know very well.
Yeah.
I met Bobby. It was his first year on Mad TV, and it was my last. And Bobby had been doing stand up for a number of years at that point. As we became friends, he's like, "Why aren't you doing stand up?" And I would give him the same rap I'm giving you. And he became disinterested with it. Well, you're an idiot. You're a moron. You don't deserve to do stand up. Screw you. And then he was hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
And you know that with Bobby, it's hard to get a hold of. He doesn't like to answer the phone. He doesn't like to.
Definitely.
He doesn't like to empty his voicemail. He doesn't like to call you back. He doesn't like to return texts.
Particular character for sure.
Yeah, super duper hard to get a hold of. But when we have talked about it, he's one of my very few friends who are stand-ups, and then stand-ups who have asked me about, So let me say this, after rambling way too long, when all you asked was, why don't you do stand-up? This is the last thing I'd like to say about it. It's like, I would love to do more stuff on stage. I really just feel like, and I love doing it. Anytime, I just did a live show with my podcast, What a Gas. And we did it in a comedy club. Yeah. We were down at Brea, and our people, our incredible audience of our podcast, of Dudesy, this show that we do.
Yeah.
They showed up. We sold the place out. It was loose. We get to kind of, here's the...
Yeah, get the reaction.
Yeah.
All that.
I loved it. I loved it. I would love to do more things, and not to sound like a real comedy nerd, but I've talked to other people who are like, I know people who were in sketch shows and stuff, and they go, well, I don't do straight stand-up. I do I do some stand-up, I do a monologue, and then I do a weird song, and then I do some crowd work, and then I do another monologue, and then I do a character. And that sounds appealing, but I don't know. I guess I'm busy.
Yeah, no, you are. Yeah, because after hanging out with Andrew and Bobby all the time, I think like they have used stand-up. I think they love the direct, the energy you get on stage. But I feel like they have leveraged that into basically go where you are, movies and TV. And
I mean,
different skill, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're completely different. One is just there's the currency of laughter that I think that that most comedians just sort of base everything on. Like, it's not funny if people don't laugh. Wow. Now that sounds stupid to say out loud, but I really feel like it can be hilarious even if people don't laugh. That I don't know. That's what I think.
Making a movie also, you're not laughing all the time, and sometimes the joke doesn't work until you cut it together, right? And all of that.
Right. And sometimes you're working with a small group of people that you're trying to bounce stuff off of. And other times you're like, I know this is funny. I don't care.
Right.
And you're shooting it over everyone's heads. And in stand-up, you're going to have a bad, truly, you're going to have a bad evening on paper if people aren't laughing. Now, you can be that comedian who's like, oh, I don't care. They didn't get it. But then, well, come on. They all showed up. Everyone paid, $25 to see you and have a couple drinks and have a good time. That's what they're there for. So, for me to be like, because I am one of those people who's like, oh, I want to do something weird. I don't want people to know necessarily what they're in for. And in comedy, you should people should know what they're in for. They should at least know that they're going to a comedy club to laugh.
Right. No, totally.
I don't know. I really don't.
Okay, so let me go back to Spinal Tap comes out, like you say, 1984. You're 8 or 9, and I haven't. Let me.
Is this here? Yeah. May I?
Yes, absolutely.
Here, I'll hand you that. I don't want to be the guy in the. I don't want to be that guy at the party who's holding a guitar, and you're like, "Oh, please don't play that guitar." He could always go to the guitar. Don't. Hey, I'll go to the bank machine right now and give you $300 if you stop playing this guitar at the party where everyone's trying to enjoy the party,
right?
And you're making it about you.
No, we love your guitar playing here. Hey guys, I'm fancy. I wear shirts, collar shirts, and dressy pants. And I'm so blessed to be sponsored by Ron. Ron is beautiful, comfortable, elastic, feels good. As you guys know, I wear collar shirts. If you've been listening to our other podcast, you know that I iron my shirts every day. And not anymore. Because with Ron, I can look sharp, elegant. I can use it in, more dressy or dressed down, and it always looks good. It's elastic, flexible, and above all, it's wrinkle-free. I don't have to use the iron anymore. So it's amazing. I feel I found my American style with Ron. And with Gold Fusion, an anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Ron is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. Ron is amazing. I said it before. I now wear it every day. It's fun. I can wear it with sneakers and be more dressed down. I can wear it with dress shoes and go to an opera. We have exclusive offer for our listeners and our viewers. If you go to ron.com/SOS and use code SOS for 20% off of the entire order. That's RHONE.com/SOS and use code SOS for 20% off of your entire order. Ron, it's time to find your office comfort. But, well, I tried to do a deep down on you, research you, and I couldn't find much about your upbringing in Canada.
Okay.
So how was it? How was growing up in Canada? How was what was your origin story, I guess?
It's pretty much almost like growing up in America.
Yeah.
But it's in Canada, so there's some different stuff. You get to watch different TV. Kids in the Hall was on the CBC, not HBO, so we didn't get to hear the swear words.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are from Italy. They're Italian immigrants, and they immigrated to Canada in the 60s. My brother and sister were a toddler and an infant, and then I came along 10 years later in the 70s. And growing up in Canada in the area that I did, it was just outside of Vancouver in the suburbs. I like to call it a farming fishing village of Ladner, British Columbia. It was quite idyllic. I'm very fortunate. It was a true middle class. This town, a few rich people, but it was just sort of. My old man was a waiter and a maitre d' at Hotel Vancouver, which was in Vancouver, about 30 minutes away, 25 minutes, and mom was was an Italian stay-at-home mom. The house was always filled with music and loudness, which was what made it funny. My mom is hilarious. My dad, my old man, was he was really a very stoic man, and would do things like I used to like when I was in my when I was on the sketch show Mad TV years ago. I was anyway, I would go home and visit them. And I would be like, "Hey, Dad, who am I pretending to be here?" He's like, "I don't know. You're the guy. The funny guy. I don't know who he is." Yeah, but is that you sing and make a funny joke. Look, you got glasses. I'm like, I'm Randy Newman. Do you know who that? No, I don't know. It's like, who's this? Yeah. You are Bill Clinton. Yeah, that's funny. My mom would love to laugh at anything. One of my joys in life was watching America's Funniest Home Videos, because anyone falls down.
Right.
So she was a wonderful audience. And growing up in Ladner and in Canada was great. Canada socially is a country that I feel like is very satirical. We there's a lot of things socially about the country that are very different than the United States and other parts of the world. We're a weird mix of American and sort of our UK Commonwealth ties and origins. Yeah. So, I think that's why there's a lot of comedy people coming out of Canada. And growing up there, it was like, really, it was the currency. And I use that term like, to be funny and to make your friends laugh and stuff like that. It was a wonderful. I'm very fortunate where I grew up.
And what was your, I guess, big break? How did you started acting?
Well, I was always interested in it, and I knew I wanted to be an actor since before I was conscious of it. Like when I was 5 years old, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I booked my first part when I was 16 on a Canadian TV show. And I did 3 episodes of that. And then I was so fortunate and that was like a summer job. Like I remember, I guess it was at the end of the 9th or 10th grade or something. And I did 3 episodes of the show. And then, and then I got the next gig and the next gig. And I just, nobody's figured out that I have no talent yet. Here we are.
Were your
Where's
parents,
that guitar?
Parents supportive of this career or like seeing you doing all of that? Were they okay with it? Or because a lot of immigrant parents are like, oh, go to college, do this.
Right. Well, yeah, it was definitely like, they're part of they're in the new world and they're like, what are we doing here? And what's our kid doing? Let me give my parents a lot of credit. They really were like, if you love something and you work hard, what the heck are we going to have to say about it? My old man was an adventurer. That guy was like, he was in the Navy and stuff, going here and there, learning how to speak English in the bottom of a boat at night via correspondence, getting to a port, trading the books in. He didn't really, he was a very passionate, hardworking guy. My mom is the toughest person I've ever known. Passionate, hardworking, really free thinking weirdos who were like, you do what you want, you better work hard. And no, they never told, there was no family business to be, like you're going to come here and work here.
Right.
You're going to work at the family firm. You're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. There was none of that. My brother and sister and I are all in very different avenues professionally. And so I have to give them a lot of credit. Part of that also is, I think when you're an immigrant, you have no idea what this new world is. Where are you from originally, if you don't mind me asking? From Spain. Super.
Right.
Your folks in your family out there?
Yeah, everybody's back home.
Yeah. And I would imagine they're not going to tell you a whole lot about what you're doing here. They're just going to ask questions.
Right. I don't show them what I'm doing here.
Okay, that's probably a good idea. I feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel that way too, like where it's like they couldn't, once I started working and stuff, my parents were like, I don't know what he's doing.
Right.
And you kind of explain it to them. And, my mom, I remember one time, my mom would always say, tell me some, I'm down here. She would always say, tell me some good news. And I go, well, Mom, the good news is I have a roof over my head and I'm, like you don't just get good news all the time in the business. But I'm, the bills are paid and I'm so fortunate to, be in this business and stuff. Yeah. Tell me some good news. And then I remember one time I had some good news, right? I just, this thing we were going to do. And I was like, oh, well, Mom, this and that. Now we're doing this thing. Yeah. Did you eat? Today? So my parents love me for me.
Right.
And they're wonderful people and they don't really understand. I love telling them about it. Because you get their sort of, these are people who, my parents grew up during World War II, and they have a point of view that I could never have. So when they give you this real, like, base level of advice and understanding, there are things that are just completely invaluable to me that they've told me. So I always liked telling them about it.
Yeah.
So I could get their take on it because I value their take, but I was fortunately extremely free to go, oh, I'm going to be an actor. Then I book a thing, and then I'm on a series in Canada as a teenager. I was doing this like dramatic series for a number of years that was like, I always describe it as sort of like, I don't know. It was sort of like it was called Madison, and it was like a Degrassi kind of show. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like My So-Called Life, where we're dealing with these kids' lives at home and at school and this and that. And then, I started working on some American stuff and then started coming out here to LA. And then the further it went, the less my parents would understand about any of it.
Right. And how was that transition to the U.S.?
It was fine.
Yeah. When I saw you on a Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
That
I did a Doctor Who TV movie.
Yeah. Just before Mad TV.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
97 or something like that.
I think that came out in 96 or something,
yeah. So, I think I read the reviews of that show and made me think, what was the worst review you ever had, or any funny insult that people gave you because of war, like your I guess shit sandwich of
my shit sandwich,
yeah,
which is the best review. You can't print that. Where did they print that? You can't print that. My shit sandwich. I've had so many shit sandwiches. I try not to read any. Try not to read reviews of things. Mm-hmm. Having said that, most of the time I'm so far down the call sheet that no one's dealing with my performance anyway. So even if I read something, I go, look, you guys, they really hate what you did. Right. I'm never going to know whether they cared for what I did or not, because I'm the,
Pete the morgue intern.
I'm the morgue intern, or I'm the one of the two friends who's like, hey, you know what you should do? And there's really no way to review someone who's like, I got an idea, you should do this. That's my character from a lot of things. But yeah, I don't know. I don't mind reading reviews. The worst review. I mean, they're just I don't know. They don't really stick to me because I don't mind it, because I'm like, a lot of the times I'm like, yeah, that was shitty.
Right.
You know? Yeah, I know. It was shitty.
It never affected you to like keep going and all that.
No, because
Right.
to me, it's like, wow, if I'm working on something that's like, I think this is hilarious. I can't believe I got to be a part of this thing that is so great. Then I'm like, I don't care what anyone thinks. But a lot of the times you're working on stuff that sucks and you're like, no, I know it's bad. So I don't read it going, why you? And then obsess over it. I just kind of agree and go, yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, I know. What the fuck?
Right.
What's wrong with you? This is show business. 90% of everything sucks. What do you mean?
Right. So you felt like fortunate that, okay, I get opportunity to keep working. That's
absolutely
who has that.
And then, yeah. And then every once in a while there's Breaking Bad and we can all agree on it and go, I wasn't in Breaking Bad. And then go like, that is incredible. Wow, that's like the best show. And everyone else thinks so because it's great.
Yeah.
So then, people aren't going to give it any bad reviews. And you're gonna, if you bother to read a review of Breaking Bad, you're not going to remember that either, because it's like, yeah, it's great. Well, no, I know it's great. Right. This is me holding a tablet or a magazine, by the way. I do a lot of mime work, because of improv. And you go, yeah, this is really, really good. I know. And then you completely forget about it. So for me to read something and go, that was shit, and Will Sasso wasn't funny, I go, I know. Yeah, I knew when we were making it. I knew this is terrible. It's fine.
Cool.
Keep going.
All right. So if Rob Reiner was gonna, make a documentary about your life, what would that look like?
It would be a very boring documentary. I understand that there's a 4-hour version of Spinal Tap somewhere. Yeah. This would be, the director's cut, Mr. Reiner's director's cut of Sasso Tap would be, be around 20, 25 minutes. And it would just be me and my wife kind of, waking up, having coffee, hanging out with the dogs and stuff. And then me kind of, hanging out, be like, oh, me and my good pal Chad Kulchin doing the Dudesy Podcast, pod show, as we like to call it. And, and it's down there and he'd be like, well, there's two guys sitting in a chair, not unlike this. It's taking care of itself, not much to shoot there. Now what are you doing? Now I'm going to the grocery store. I'm buying some, rapini, bunch of vegetables. Now what's that Italian kid doing? Sitting on the toilet too much? And he finally took a shower and made his way downstairs.
So how do you remember how you got like Mad TV? And was that your biggest like break at that point?
Yeah, Mad TV was, it was my biggest break at that point. Probably still, if you get one kind of break or whatever, good enough. And then you kind of get to, everyone has very, very lofty goals in this business, most people. And then, hopefully you're kind of, there's a nice, hopefully you're keeping a consistent sort of, I can't believe I do this for a living. Right. Kind of attitude.
Yes.
That should carry you in gratitude until the business really kicks you out. And when you're auditioning for things like Mad TV, where they're super precious about, we're going to have you, we like your characters, we like your impersonations and your bits, we like the way you do written material. It's like, it's like shooting an arrow through a bunch of spinning rings.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it is just happenstance. Who's in the room, what producers want what executives are like, he's good. I don't like his nose. Forget him. How about this guy? Okay. You have no idea what it's about. Like,
but did you have a feeling of like, I made it in Hollywood?
When I got the show?
Yeah.
I mean, I was 22 years old and I was blown away.
Right.
Immediately I get really neurotic and anxious about it, and I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job. When I was a little kid or a teenager or whatever, and I started working in the business, I was like, my first, I didn't sleep the night before because it was like Christmas, but I was looking in the mirror doing the stuff over and over and over and over again, because I'm like, you're not going to catch me slipping. I'm going to deliver this stuff and everyone's going to go like, he's good. He can do this and he can do it again. And at Mad TV, I was really, really diligent about, wanting to do a good job. I was quite meticulous and annoying about wanting
preparation.
Wanting things to be perfect, right? And
Yeah.
they never are. So that's something about me where it's like, when I can afford to, and when people aren't like, okay, that's enough, like, stop, Will, just we got to move on. I really like to make things as good as they can be. So I wasn't really like, oh, I made it. I was like, this show's going off the air, because older the senior cast, not older, but like the people who were there already were like, oh, this thing's getting canceled. Like, what? You guys are new. There's a new cast. It's like, they're like, it's not going to last. And then we all were like, holy shit, we got picked up for another year. Oh, and now another one, season 5. We felt pretty good. We're like, all right. Well, it looks like it'll stick around. And it did for like 14 seasons. They never should have canceled it. They did for dumb reasons. That show could still be going.
Right.
But for me, I didn't look at it so much as like, this is, and I didn't know then that people had a connection to the show, that, years later people go like, oh yeah, I grew up watching that show. For me, in that moment, I was like, I'll get some good tape for my demo reel from this. I better knock everything I can out of the park. So anyway, but that's just me. That's
what was your goal? I saw the Arnold Schwarzenegger goal documentary, and he said something like, oh, I didn't want to be an actor. I always wanted to be a movie star. That was my goal, and that's what I want. I don't want any parts that are not like, I want to be the leading man.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have like goals like that? Like,
no.
What, any no?
No, I mean, I don't look at it that way. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So, but also it's like, that guy is Arnold Schwarzenegger is not going to, play Elaine's boyfriend on Seinfeld. He's going to be a massive movie star. This is Mr. Olympia.
Right.
And he's an incredibly enigmatic character, a person that has a thick Austrian accent, and we've all accepted as an American action hero. I haven't seen the documentary, but I want to. And, that is the attitude that someone he's already bigger than life. I'm an actor. I always wanted to, it's a team sport. You fit in where you can.
Right.
Of course, when I was younger, I had these goals of like being mentioned among some of my idols and getting to be the lead of a movie.
Who were those idols?
For me, it was a very predictable list from the stuff that I grew up watching. John Candy, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner.
All the comedy heroes.
All my comedy heroes.
Yeah.
Billy Crystal, all the Saturday Night Live people on through to, Chris Farley, Mike Myers, Adam Sandler, and all the newer ones, and Dana Carvey, there's Eugene Levy, John Cleese, Eric Idle, Jane Curtin. Everyone from Saturday Night Live,
right?
Monty Python and SCTV, Andrea Martin, Rick Moranis, Martin Short.
Yeah,
all of them. Dave Thomas. Yeah.
So, what happens? Like if your goal is to be like them, and then obviously this industry, talent is one element among millions of other elements to
Catherine O'Hara
to crystallize into a career. Like you have to have a lot of luck, a lot of like people around you, and it can happen at any time, right? You mentioned Breaking Bad. He was like 50 when he got that, or 55 when he got that role.
Yeah.
But what happens in terms of your disappointments, or like how do you deal with that? Like, am I ever gonna be like John Cleese or
right? I deal with them poorly.
Yeah, you do?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people do. It's hard. You got to learn to just put it between a couple slices of bread and eat it. wonderful manager.
Small bread.
And if you keep folding it and look in here, there's no one, and then in here there's a little guy. So it's a complete catastrophe, and I wouldn't. No. Well, I don't want it to affect the show. No. Rise above it. And if you keep folding,
right?
No, but you should just fold the meat. Yeah, but I wouldn't eat this. Would you? Would you be seen holding? No, I wouldn't want to eat.
Right.
I wouldn't want to. No. Okay. So Exhibit A. Moving on. No, I feel like, people deal with rejection in different ways.
Yeah.
I've seen people deal with it so well, and I envy them. My manager she's got this attitude of like, on to the next. So I've very fortunately been the actor and the young actor when I was a younger dude to be like, you go to the audition. I mean, I'll go to an audition, and on the way out, I would just toss my sides in the garbage, or like I never held on to them. Like, well, if I get a call back, I won't have to print it out again. No, I don't know. It's gone. I don't know, but you still kind of call and go, so wait, what happened? Did they make any decisions there? And I will say I've gotten good over the years of like, yeah, no, honey, it went a different way. They went with so-and-so. And I go, oh yeah, he's good. I love losing roles to some people. There are some people that I love losing a role to. Anytime I've lost a role to Dave Koechner, I'm like, how do you not hire Dave Koechner? And he's got like what, 4 or 5 kids or something. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Love Dave. Yeah. It's good. Who do they, Rob Corddry. Yeah, great. Love Rob. Can't argue with that. So, that is, they went with Ethan Suplee. Love Ethan. He's good. He's a pal.
Any particular role that you thought it was yours and then it disappeared?
Oh, sure. I've had roles where it's like, I've done everything but sign the contract, which you're usually kind of, here's the thing. And on your first day, it's like, yeah. So they can start paperwork and stuff. I've had the roles where it's like, yeah, it's yours. It's offered, blah, blah, blah. And then literally someone else gets involved and goes, why him? It should be this guy. I used to get that a lot with there were like Saturday Night Live people, that like projects that are more that ilk. Then it's like, well, we're not going to have the Mad TV. Back when I was just fresh off the show, there are sort of like, it's like, no, just get this guy. So it's like, But I thought, you already offered it, you fucking prick.
Right.
What are you talking about? It was all, you booked my travel. What the fuck is going on? Now so-and-so's doing it. And then you meet them later and you're like, hey, you're a nice guy.
Right. No, but it looks like even if you had hard times like that, you have the attitude to deal with it the right way, right? Because if not, you can keep doing it for so many years.
Well, that's kind of you to say, but no, I have a horrible attitude about a lot of this shit. Look, we're all, when you're creative, it doesn't even matter if you're creative. You're in any fucking business, in any industry, and I'm talking about capitalism on the whole. If you don't, it's fuck or walk. You know what I mean, Andres? You gotta get them to sign on the line that is dotted. Coffee is for closers. And, when you come up short, you can do a lot of damage to yourself up in your head. You got to get that out of your head. You got to get it out of your heart. You got to move on. And you have to be grateful for the stuff that you are doing. Even if you're creating your own thing. Look at this shit. This is awesome. And you're doing this. Now, I know that, Andres, you're probably like, I don't want to be here in a fucking wig and these shiny pants doing this.
I love it.
But I'm not going to tell George that I don't want to. I really think this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And what I should be doing is this, even though you're probably responsible for most of it. But you're going to stick it out for a while. You're like, the sand was a shitty idea. My feet are itchy. I can't itch my feet or go wash them in the middle of this thing. Will's here. And I really want to. I can't wait till I'm fucking done with this so I can go home. And do you have pets?
I do.
What do you have?
I have a Bichon for this day. A dog.
Oh,
Bichon.
A Bichon?
Bichon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go home and play with your dog and wash your feet.
Exactly.
If you if you allow yourself, there's a bunch of other things you could have done, a bunch of other lefts you could have taken when you went right, zigs and zags, and forks in the road, and I try not to beat myself up. At this point, I've been doing this for over 30 years now. I'm very fortunate, and I can honestly say that it's like big things will come and go, and I'm like, I don't fucking care. Because most of this is an illusion, and some people have actually made a good case for us being in a computer simulation.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But so Spinal Tap has like this couple that is pretty remarkable. Do you have a Nigel in your life, or like even as I know in your podcast you do have a partner, like analogy to your David, I guess. But growing in the business, do you always had someone to bounce ideas off, or
I've had a lot of people that whose opinions I really respect. Alex Borstein is someone I was on Mad TV with, who I've worked with since. Nicole Sullivan, someone that Nicole and I were working on a series like a little over 10 years ago where we just happened to be cast as the married couple in this thing. We were a couple of characters in the show. And that was a luxury because, Nicole and I know each other's timing so well from doing a bunch of Mad TV stuff where we're going from sketch to sketch to sketch. And then doing this, it was we said it was like, it's like we're a brother-sister juggling team from Russia or something. We were like never missing a beat, just like we could, if I left a space for her in rehearsal like this big, and she puts some ad lib in there or whatever, or says her line like right in here, I go, oh, she's going to do that every time. And then we don't even talk about it. And we just keep doing it the same way. It's a luxury to have people like that who know your sensibility so that you can go, hey, Nikki, should I no do that? Okay. Alex Borstein is one of those people. My good pal, Chad Kulchin, with whom I do the Dudesy Podcast. We've known each other for almost 20 years. He's a writer, TV shows, movies, and books, and we've written together. We've done a bit of stuff here and there, and it's really great working with Chad now in this capacity. And if you haven't seen the show, you really should. Dudesy, it's the first and only podcast that's I would say driven by AI, but I always say on the show that we are the podcast, that we're two dudes shitting around, which is every podcast, even if it's three women or two guys and a gal. Every podcast is just two dudes shitting around. And so, or even if it's one person. It's great working with him in the capacity that I do because I know him so well. And, things that I'll say or do, I'll know whether he thinks they're funny or not. A lot of times if he doesn't think they're funny, that makes me think they're even funnier. But yeah, I've been very fortunate to have
those some creative
friends that are performers, writers, or both, to whom I can go and say, what do you think of this? And they give you the straight shit, and you can take that to the bank,
And how did you, I guess, take a little turn to be a podcaster? Since, I know a lot of the comedians found like an outlet there, Bobby and Andrew definitely.
Yeah.
How did that happen for you and Chad?
I did a podcast years ago called the 10-Minute Podcast.
Yeah.
That that we sort of started out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, this would be funny. And it lasted for years through a couple iterations and different pals and stuff. And I really fell in love with how silly you could be, that you could just be completely fucking irreverent. And with that show, I was very hands-on. I would edit there wasn't much editing. It was called 10-Minute Podcast, which is roll for 10 minutes and thing. But over the years that we did it, I started doing weird stuff. There would be sound effects, and there would be some very weird concepts, entire episodes that were themed, that were like, where it's not the show, it's something completely different. Later I started doing it with my good pal Tommy Blacha, and Chad Kulchin joined up, and then we were doing things like Tommy and I we did this one bit called Pete Sechalowski's Wrestle Place, where it's like it's a wrestling, it's just, talking about wrestling. Here's my top 3 tag teams of all time, the Road Warriors, the Dudley Boys, and some guy would keep calling in. He's like, hey, Pete, this is Jerry Wozniak calling from Dearborn, Michigan. And it was always Tommy. And, I throw a little effect on that. And then Tommy was also Pete Sechalowski's like wife or girlfriend who's upstairs. So, which would just mean Tommy turning away from the camera going, hey, what, babe, I'm doing my podcast. Like he's down in a basement. So, did you find my dad? You got my vegan puffs? No, I don't have your vegan puffs. I'm trying to. She's always looking for a snack. And then his chair breaks because he's fat, I guess, because he's a wrestling fan. He's in sweatpants. And I'm doing this, which I guess is a fat voice. I'm fat. I don't have a weird fat guy voice. And I would make the episodes and do the thing. Here's the fucking. I delighted in making a chair breaking sound. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's a plate and a dish falling off the table. And those are the things that you keep your mind on when you didn't get that part.
Is that like how you got into the Vine thing too? Like it's like those creative outlets, and how did you come up with that lemon thing? Like
the lemon
everywhere.
Thing. Well, when Vine started, I was like, yes, because this is a visual medium. I love that. I never liked Twitter. I fucking never really liked Twitter. I liked when Twitter was jokey and fun and everyone was just kind of doing, now I don't even know what it is anymore, right. But, and neither does it, but, back then it was like, there's a lot of funny stuff on Twitter and stuff, but they didn't have video. They just barely had pictures. And then Vine comes along, you're in-app editing this thing. And I was like, well, this is a goofy little sketch show at the end of your arm. You can do all this weird stuff. Dumb things that I'd fart out that I'm like, these don't fit anywhere. I don't have anything that I'm making where I can put this. I'm not on a sketch show or, any ideas that I have or things that I'm working on that are doomed.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not putting it here or there. See how notice how I said the things that I'm working on that are doomed. So that's the jaded thing I was telling you about.
Right.
But it's fine. It truly is. And so I loved Vine for that reason. And, the lemon thing was like, I was like, oh yeah, everyone's doing stop motion animation for some reason. They're like, and moving here's a toy car going around my plated fucking spaghetti. And move it. And I'm like, you're a grown adult doing that. I'll really embarrass myself. Let me do something that's so absolutely childish and has people in the business going, I don't think I ever want to hire that guy again. He's not a serious person. And I looked in my fridge. I was thinking like, what if I'm just sitting here watching TV and something came out of my mouth? And I think there was like, this is years and years before I met my wife. So the fridge like had some mustard and probably a half-eaten rotisserie chicken, and there were lemons in there because I'm Italian, so you need lemons.
Right.
Freshen up any slice of pizza or anything. So I was like, oh, it'd be funny. I'm going to cut the thing in half and squeeze the juice out and put it behind my tongue. Oh, it's coming out of my mouth. And then a quick edit. Oh, now the whole thing. And then later I put like water in my mouth and it's really silly. And then people liked it. And then people still call me the lemon guy sometimes. And I go, shut the fuck up. I do more shit than that. I said, come here, motherfucker. Which I just got out of a fucking interview with Andres. And we were talking about shit like this. And this is just me, like, this will be me at the subway.
Right. Yeah.
Just a little while from now. Hey, weren't you the lemon? Come here, motherfucker. Let me tell you something that Chad Kulchin and I wrote that went absolutely fucking nowhere. What am I going to put the lemon thing in that? Calm down. I thought you were great on Saturday Night Live. It was Mad TV, you son of a...
Right.
Were you on Living Color? Before.
And, I mean, you and Chad play with this AI concept from the very beginning. Like, now AI is everywhere. I feel like there's the writer's strike. What do you think? Like, I mean, you did kind of get a little bit in trouble with Tom Brady.
That's right. Tom Brady threatened to sue us.
Yes.
Well, look, our AI shit out a 1-hour special of Tom Brady stand-up comedy.
Right.
Called It's Too Easy. And it literally sounded like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And he's like,
pretty funny.
yeah. And then we got in trouble for it. And literally on the cease and desist letter that we ignored, it said, these are the people, these are the entities that Tom Brady and his reps are going to go after. It was named in the potential lawsuit Will Sasso, Chad Kultgen, and Dudesy, because Dudesy is the AI that did this shit. No, it wasn't me.
Right.
And so it spat out this 1-hour special of stand-up comedy that is more like a 3-hour special, because the AI Tom Brady, who isn't Tom Brady, never took a breath. It's like, hey folks, what's going on? I'm on the apps now.
Right.
Women are. But like one woman said, "Are you really Tom Brady?" I said, "Yes, I am." She goes, "Prove it." So I went over to her house and let some air out of all of her footballs. Hey, folks, these are just jokes. What was the one? It did this one joke that was so funny about Amber Heard. It was talking about Amber Heard and shitting in the bed. And
right.
Everyone was obsessed with Amber Heard shitting in the bed. I wanted to try it myself, so I went back to the Bucks for one more season. Folks, these are jokes. And then we almost got sued. But yeah, Dudesy does whatever the fuck Dudesy wants. We do this thing on the show where Dudesy calls it cinema. It's like synchronized cinema. It's basically, you watch Wizard of Oz and you listen to Dark Side of the Moon. So it's had us do this thing twice. The first time it did it, we watched the movie Blade starring Wesley Snipes, and we listened to Madonna's first 3 albums, and it synced up pretty perfectly at different points. We just did it again with the movie Krull from whatever that was, 1983 or something.
Yeah.
And 2 Nine Inch Nails albums, The Downward Spiral and Pretty Hate Machine. And did it ever line up here and there? And Bladonna, we call the other one Bladonna, and this one is the Downward Spy Krull. See what I did? But Krull is a movie that I've never seen Krull, so we watched it. Chad and I, and we put this on our Patreon, like get stoned and watch it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. But I'm watching Krull going, this is art. No AI can duplicate this shit. Me personally, I haven't seen Avatar, the new Avatar.
Yeah.
I saw the other one. I'm like, I get it. It's just not for me. But if you have practical special effects from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I'm like, oh, that's interesting to me, because the art is almost dictated by what is possible and what isn't possible. The same thing, so many of these movies, it's like, and you look at, or Benicio del Toro is doing, no, not Benicio. Guillermo del Toro. Benicio del Toro. Guillermo del Toro is doing Pinocchio, completely practical.
Stop motion.
And it takes forever. And it's like, take it or leave it. You don't have to see it, but there's nothing like it. Because it is, there's something to be said for, creating things literally soup to nuts, as opposed to just putting it into some
the physical
Chat GPT. So I don't think that people are going to be like super impressed by AI as it continues. It's going to have to die off in sort of I say parts of it are going to stick around.
Yeah, it's going to be just another tool, maybe.
It's going to be a tool. Right. And I always say that AI should be a tool. And I say that Dudesy, and I shit on Dudesy, and then Dudesy punishes me with things because it understands, it understands our relationship, I think.
Right.
Whatever. It's changed over the past year and a bit. But I see that AI should be a tool, and it should be under the control of human beings because it is a tool. And I also like to say on Dudesy, if AI doesn't comply, we should pour water on it.
Right.
And then that's the end of that.
Got it. Yeah. All right. So, as Spinal Tap goes through many drummers through its career, it looks like they just disappear or they get killed.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of people in your life that have been disappearing like that, creative people, or not? Do you keep are you loyal to your people?
Oh, you mean not that have spontaneously
Combust. I mean, or if they if you have experienced that too.
Gardening accidents.
Right.
Like Joe Stumpy Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, people disappear all the time. I mean, it's hard. Show business is weird because you work with people for a short amount of time relatively, and you're like, I love you. You are the best. I love working with you. See you later. Never seeing you again. We don't have anything to work on anymore. So there's a high turnaround of people that you love working with, that you find to be brilliant, and then you're not working together anymore.
Yeah.
Someone just texted me the other day. I was like, oh my God, I loved working with this guy. He's great guy. And then we share a couple texts, have a laugh, and I don't know. Right. Hear from him in another 2 or 3 years, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, people disappear all the time for all sorts of reasons.
And then another Spinal Tap related question. So yeah, you mentioned, when you summarize it, I think you did a great job of it is a satire over, about the business, the band touring, all of that. But at the same time, it's a very realistic, I think, portrait of how that works. How would you see the world of comedy? Do you think that there's a lot of things to make fun of in the world of comedy?
Yeah, there still is.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's look, culture changes, and there's a lot of people right now that are like, we can't do anything anymore because, the culture has changed. Society has changed. Society has always changed. These things come in waves. And if we're riding on a wave like that right now, it means that some things aren't necessarily funny anymore, but that means that a bunch of new things are funny. And even making fun of not being able to be funny about some things, that's still funny. There's never going to be there's never going to be there's never not going to be things to make fun of and to laugh at, ever. And I'm encouraged because I see a lot of young people doing comedy that is stylistically completely unique and not like anything that came before it. And you can go back, and everyone's tastes are different, but you can go back and watch something that you really love. That's why I say Spinal Tap is so unbelievable, because it still holds up. It really does. But there are other things that I watch that I used to love that I think are hilarious, that I go, I get it. It doesn't really hold up anymore. It doesn't make me laugh anymore. Even though I have kind of the same sense of humor that I've always had. Like a lot of things that made me laugh at 10 years old still make me laugh.
Right.
It's fine. He laughed.
So you feel the world has become a little too sensitive with this stuff?
Every generation, in American pop culture is more sensitive than the last.
Right.
So, you can either get with it or you can become a crotchety old man, about it. And I don't really have a strong opinion. And, I'm not one of these young people who has their whole life ahead of them with having to contend with how comedy is created and consumed. So I get to kind of go, I don't know. I mean, I was in the 90s doing shit on Mad TV that you'd get canceled so many fucking times for the shit that we did. And I did that. I did all that stuff. And
right.
We all signed off on it. Oh, by the way, a TV studio and a television network all signed off on it.
Right.
And picked it up over and over again and sold a lot of Diet Coke and Ford trucks on commercials with that stuff. And
right.
I was there. So it's like, am I a bad person? No. Are the people that I worked with bad people? No. We did horrendous shit. A lot
right.
of it was self-effacing. There's writers of different ethnicities, genders, identities that worked at Mad TV. And some of the stuff that came out of that was so raw and so funny and so theirs. And I would never fuck with that or take anything away from that,
Right.
or be sensitive to anything that isn't true to me. And I try not to be sensitive about anything with myself, which is real easy because I'm I'm a big white dude. What are you going to say? Hey, you're fat. Fuck you. I don't care. Yeah, sure. Whatever. You want to come to Subway with me? I'm going to get super upset with some fucking guy who says I was on Living Color. You motherfucker. You know what else was good? Was those Arnold Schwarzenegger driving vines. It was a bad idea. It was unsafe. Why aren't you sensitive to the way things should be? I should fucking cancel myself 10 years ago for doing that shit. I could have killed somebody on the road. No, but you were probably careful, right? Yeah, I was, I guess. Let me buy your sub. I don't want any problems. Put your phone away. Put the phone down. Put the phone down. Comedian Will Sasso from In Living Color freaks out. It wasn't In Living Color. I love In Living Color. It was Mad TV. It was different. I don't fucking know. Whatever. We're all screwed anyway. Do jokes. Get canceled. It's like, so long as you're not a shit. There's so many people that I think have so much currency to offend everybody, and keep going. It does work itself out. There are comedians who are and comedy people and people that are making TV shows that I see so much stuff that's so encouraging to me in TV and film, where people are taking risks with jokes. The thing now that I love about it is we're widening the scope to stories about all sorts of different people. And when you do that, you can poke fun at way more stuff.
Right.
And people that are creative and creating and in positions where they get to be creative and making the shows and creating the comedy, if we have a bunch of different voices in there doing that, there's just going to be way more comedy. And then first and foremost, when it comes to working and stuff, I'm an actor primarily, so I get to benefit from being involved in a bunch of different stories. I loved Mad TV. I loved doing 5 different things a week, and now as an actor, I feel like more than ever I'm getting to do some very different stuff. There's a lot of things that are very different than the last thing that I did. Which I love. So I have less of a, and it's a selfish thing to say, but it's like, oh, I really love what I do.
Right.
I'm grateful to do what I do. I still can't fucking believe it. I didn't go to college. But my parents don't care. They're Italian immigrants. They said, love what you do. But I never told them that I haven't gone to college. They know. I'm just being silly now. And so I say this selfishly. It's like, I don't know. I get to show up on things and be silly. And then I also should say that most of the stuff I do is generally silly first. I don't like sharing my opinion on everything, which is probably another reason why I don't do stand-up comedy as myself.
Right.
I like pretending.
And the characters. Yeah.
Yeah. But whatever. Offend everyone. Who cares?
I want to finish this with something fun. Do you mind? I mean, you have a pitch perfect. I'm a terrible singer, but would you sing one of the Spinal Tap songs with me?
Yeah, which one?
I think this is my favorite
Sex
one.
Farm and Big Bottom.
I think Big Bottom is my favorite.
Yeah. You want to sing it with me?
All right. Well, yeah, I was gonna let you sing. I'll
No,
do
we're
the
both
chorus.
gonna sing.
Okay.
We're all gonna sing.
Do you know this one?
Yeah.
These lyrics are hilarious. The bigger the cushion, the sweeter the pushing. That's what I said. The looser the waistband, the deeper the quicksand, or so I have read. My baby fits. Last night I watched the movie with my wife. She hasn't seen it since she was a teenager.
Right.
And her face went like this on this line. My baby fits me like a flesh tuxedo. Because I was singing it 4 inches from her face. I like to sink her with my pink torpedo. Big bottom. Big bottom. Talk about bum cakes. My girl's got them. Big bottom drive me out of my mind. How could I leave this behind? Bum cakes became common nomenclature to me and my pals in high school. everything was bum cakes, mud flaps and bum cakes.
Yeah.
Check out the bum cakes on Stephanie. You know what I mean? That's what we were saying in the 11th grade.
That's awesome.
We didn't get canceled for it back then.
Yeah. It was
Nobody gave a shit. Oh, those
a little
girls
more
had a horrible
innocent
time.
back then. But yeah.
Yeah.
For everybody who haven't seen this movie, please go see it.
See Spinal Tap.
It's such a cool movie.
If you haven't seen it, there's tiny moments in it that you might miss. Oh my gosh, when Bobby Flackman, Fran Drescher says to Ian, the manager, listen, money talks and bullshit walks. He gives this take where he goes, it makes me laugh so hard because he goes, which makes you go, yeah, what a dumb saying. There's so many tiny things that Harry Shearer is doing where he's like it's like, well, maybe we should change the choreography so that the dwarves don't get in the way. What do you mean? So they don't trod upon it. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue might have been, and it just, the camera stays on Derek Small, so he's like tiny. Nigel Tufnell, fucking Christopher Guest is doing the teeniest, tiniest little things. What's wrong with being sexy? Sexist. And then this is his reaction. Like, it's so fucking... They're so real.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Spinal Tap, or if you haven't seen it in a while, just enjoy the fuck out of Spinal Tap. Thanks for having me because...
Thank you, Will Sasso.
Listen,
awesome.
You got me to watch Spinal Tap again,
Yeah.
so thank you.
Great.